just, let me think about it. How does this impact me? Because one thing about a boundary, Jackie, you really don't have to set it right away. You have time. There's
Yeah.
nothing that says you have to do it. And I always say, wait 24, 48 hours if you feel you want to set a boundary, because it gives you time to journal. It gives you time to think about it. It gives you time to do some self-awareness to see if it's even worth it. If that's a
Yeah.
battle even worth fighting. And even when you set a boundary is supposed to be set in love. And the
Yeah.
best kind of love is self-love that you're setting.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And so with that, so I've been through situations like that, and I'm like, okay, Jackie, I think this is your ego that's getting involved. Like, I really check my ego a lot, because I'm like, okay, and the same thing is like, okay, do I have to respond like this? And before, when I was way more defensive and had way more negative boundaries up and shut down and closed, I did have, I would be more quick to respond, like, how dare you? And who do you think you are? But then it's like, okay, Jacqueline, like, your ego's getting involved here. It's just going to lead to a lot of negativity. And why involve yourself in that? And I remember, like, one day when we were at like a business meeting, and Alice said to me, I'm still trying to figure you out. And that was like early on, when she was like within the first couple of years. And that was because I was so afraid to be open. And I just lived in like all this fear that I just had, was just so shut down. And I was so afraid that if I got exposed, people wouldn't like me. And so I just was kind
So
of
you had a
staying to
wall.
myself. I
You
had
had a
that
wall.
wall. Yeah, I had a wall up. Yep. Yep. So that's interesting. And I do apologize to everyone. I thought I had started the live stream and I didn't. And that's why I kept looking. So it kind of got, not all of it, but we'll go at the end of the podcast. I want to just go over like your book and all that stuff one more time. Okay.
Okay, and Jackie, real quick, if you want to talk to them more, my phone is about to go dead. And I got to get my charger. I just
Yeah.
realized that. So go ahead and talk. I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. So yeah. So these are some of the boundaries. So again, we are the You Are Loved podcast. Nothing is perfect. I thought the live stream had started and had my intro, but we have this amazing Pamela Byrd, who is a boundaries coach. She is amazing and has really helped myself as well as many others learn the art of journaling, the art of just going through and starting your own specific boundaries, and really just doing some stuff like that. And having us being able to have not only a healthier relationship with ourselves or with others, but really a healthy relationship with ourselves. Because if we can have a healthy relationship with ourselves, then we can definitely grow to have a healthier relationship with others later on. So that is, yeah. So that's that. So,
I'm sorry,
now,
Jackie. I'm sorry, Jackie.
no, that's okay.
I'm
Hey,
like, really, I'm about to go dead if I don't plug this
oh
in.
yeah, we got to make sure that, yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, so we're just basically going over, yeah, some different boundaries and stuff like that. So,
Here we go.
so now on top of that, and like just really kind of like, one of my friends, she always says to me, um, that one of the things that she really likes about me is that I'm just self-aware, and that I'm always just trying to improve, right? Just to be
Mhm.
that better person and so forth. And there's something that stuck in my head from when I was like 11 years old. My friend's dad said to me, Jackie, people are either going to love you or they're going to dislike, like, not hate me, but like dislike me, right? There was no in between, which is fine. But at that time, no, I was 14. I wanted everybody to like me. I just wanted to have friends, and you're in high school, uh, and you just want to be connected with people. So with that, can you share some, no, I'll ask you that next, but what role does self-awareness play in establishing like healthy boundaries, like with yourself and others?
Yeah, it is huge, huge. I cannot tell you. It is so huge because, like I said, boundaries are something that we set. The healthy ones
Hmm.
are when we do it in love, and the
Yeah.
most important type of love that influences our boundaries is self love. And a lot of times, people don't want to increase their level of self-awareness because they're afraid of what they're going to find out or what
Yeah.
they're going to uncover. And so what journaling does, different styles of journaling, is it helps you to identify who you are. And there's one particular journaling style, and it's called dialogical journaling, and I teach that in my workshop. And that is the connection between the inner adult and the inner child. You know, one of the things about my twin sister that took her life is that she was not in a place where she wanted to even have a conversation with her inner child because she was angry with her inner child.
Mm.
And one of the things you have to do is you have to be able to have a conversation with that little girl or that little boy inside of you, because whatever is unresolved with that little boy or that little girl is what's causing you to react negatively or to get bad results in the relationships that you have, the boundaries that you're trying to set. It's because you're doing it from a place of pain,
Yeah.
a place of woundedness. And it's not until you address that little girl or that little boy inside of you where you can begin to build a level of trust to be able to for that little girl, that little boy to trust you as an adult, because you're an adult now. And now the role, and I say the inner adult and the inner child, but it's also referred to as your head and your heart, because your head is the adult, because that's the one that can think now, that's the one who's logical, that's the one who has the experience, right? And the heart is basically your emotions, and that little girl, that little boy is your emotion. So oftentimes when we react in the situation, it's based on an emotion. We get
Yeah.
angry, we get afraid, we get whatever that is. That's that little child inside of us that's acting out. So it's up to us as the adult or the thinker, the brain, to stop them and say, okay, what's going on? And here's the thing about it: that little girl, that little boy feels abandoned, feels wounded, whatever they may feel, because they were there in that situation. It's up to you as the adult to come back to that person, let that little boy, that little girl know that you're okay, they're okay, and that you're here to protect them. As the adult,
Uh-oh.
you're
Pam, you froze up.
is it still
This
there?
is me. I hope not. Okay. Yeah, there you are.
Oh,
Sorry about that. You kind of froze up. Okay.
oh,
And I'm
that's
gonna
okay.
I'm gonna bring Amy on as well, but finish what
Okay.
you were saying. Yeah.
And it's up to the adult within us to let that little child with inside of us, to let them know it's okay. It's okay who they are. You're going to protect them, and whatever issues they're going through now, their emotions, if they're connecting with you, you're letting them know that I'm going to help you through this.
Yeah,
And
that's
then they
awesome.
they feel safe. And one of the things that is important, I started inner bonding with my little girl inside of me back in 1999. And it's a process, it's a journey, but by 2014, my little girl and me as an adult, we became one.
Mm,
Yeah, because she got to the point where she trusted me, where she loved me, and she knew that I would protect her from anything.
yeah. So, which is important because I had obviously, not obviously, but I mean, a lot of people, we through different types of like childhood traumas and stuff like that. Because as kids, we're just absorbing everything, both positive and negative, right? As we are growing up, and I went through. It's interesting because I went through about 2 years of therapy, right? It tailored off towards the end, where I was going once a week to twice a month to once a month, right? And she really helped me in addition to the stuff I learned from you over the years, but she really helped me also to establish the right types of boundaries and really go through and really deep deal. Well, the biggest thing was digging deep into my childhood traumas, right? Negative stuff that had happened and all that stuff. And then being a people pleaser and just like all this stuff, right? And so she really helped me establish certain boundaries, especially with parts of my family. But what's interesting is over the years, like as I was instilling those specific boundaries, my relationships with my family actually got healthier, right?
Good. Yeah.
And we, because one of the things I wanted was, I'm like, okay, we're here to support each other and take care of each other, right? So let's do that. And then eventually, they came to the side, I chilled out, you know what I mean? And it just got a lot healthier for us. um uh One other question I wanted to ask, and then I'm going to bring Amy on and see if there's anything she has. But what do you think is the difference between like journaling and a diary? Like kids have diaries. Like, is that the same thing? Is there a difference? Like, what? Tell us about that.
Nope. It's just that when we were younger, we called it a diary.
Okay. Okay.
Now it's a journal because we're writing in a book, and it's pretty much the same thing. I think depending on how you wrote in it when you were a little girl, when you wrote in the diary, did you have a name for your diary?
No, I used to just write in like a composition book, and I would just like write everything that came into my mind and just write it down. But it was my way of dealing with, my emotions and stuff like that. I wasn't doing it every day, but I did write that, especially when I was going through some stuff to get emotions out.
Yeah, so I think maybe you were always journaling. You may have put it
Yeah.
in a diary. They called it a
Yeah.
diary. Or you put it in a composition book, a journal notebook. Basically, your composition book was a journaling notebook. Or you have something like this right here. See this right here?
Yeah.
This was my very first diary.
Oh, wow.
It was
Wow.
I know it's kind of tattered, but it's from when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
I called it Dear Diary, and then my second one the next year when I was 12 was right here. And this one was called Kit Kat. So these are diaries, but they evolved into journals as I got older. So now it's journaling, whatever you want to call the book. And we just call it a diary because that's what little girls received when they were little. But it's all journaling.
Okay. Everyone, this is Amy with the You Are
Hello.
Loved podcast and company, and it's the Amy and Jackie podcast. And Amy, were there any questions that you had at all, or?
I came in really late, so I don't know the context of everything that's
It's
being
healthy
talked about.
relationships.
I actually just got back from therapy with my child, so
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
he and I we were going every week, and then probably financial reasons more so than anything. We knocked it down to twice a month, so
Yeah.
um and we're on our third therapist, but the other two were amazing. It was just we were seeing one girl, and um because she was like, I have a solution for you for the cost wise, because my HSA card got messed up this year, and that's what I depended on for doctors throughout the year. She said, we have an intern, she's amazing, she's a lot cheaper. So we went to see her, and I loved her. She was so great, and she was like broke ground with my son, and um he really started to benefit a lot of like being able to explain what's going on in his head. um
Good.
and then
Good.
she's not an intern anymore, she's moved on to like, eventually she'll have her own practice, but right now she was done with her internship, so we had to see a new person, and I'm not. This was our first time, so it was kind of like just really me just babbling, trying to like catch her up on the past, um, why we're at therapy at all. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, that's where I'm at right now with that and with him.
Well, and I'm looking down. I don't mean to be rude, but in my
No,
book,
I
in my
can't even see the screen really. I don't have my
well,
glasses on.
in my book, I have a whole chapter on finding the right therapist. So
The
if you
problem, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
The problem with that is he's 9, and everybody since COVID wants to um, do over the computer.
Virtual, yeah.
And he's 9, and he's not going to do that. So we it has to be in person or nothing. So because it's easy for him to just shut the computer and walk away and refuse to look at it. At least in person he has accountability.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the things that's important, that the boundary that you set is that you find someone that he can see in person.
Right.
And yeah, there's other parameters that go with that, with financial and things like that, but those are the things that are important, that are priority, as far as your son getting him the help that he needs,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's listening, understand that it is not a bad thing to go to therapy. It's a
No.
good thing. It's a good thing to go to therapy. We all need the benefit of therapy at one point or so in our lives. Just make sure you understand what it is that you want to get out of the therapist, and
Right.
also make sure you have the right one. So, in the book, I talk about how to find the right one, and there are different things that you want to consider. And that's important, that you don't just take whoever someone gives you, because you could be wasting your time, or you could even be making things worse.
Right. I agree. So today was our first visit with her, and I don't have the she's older, and I'm not sure she has the she automatically, when I was talking to her, she was like, "Oh, oppositional. He's kind of oppositional, huh?" And I was like, "No, and I'll tell you why. You know, give me a minute and let me back the whole story up and tell you from beginning, and I'll tell you why he's not oppositional." And she was like, "Oh, okay." Because I've had him, I've taken him to therapy. I've gotten his MTHFR, the genetic gene. I got him tested to see if he is mutated, and if he is, I was like, okay, I know I can put him on methylated vitamins and change his diet and get him situated that way. And he's methylating fine. So I took him to Brain Balance, and they did a 2-hour assessment on him, and they said that he's stuck in primitive reflex, which is fight or flight.
Wow.
So
Wow.
at about 1 years old, you're supposed to pack that up and put it away. And he never packed his up.
Mm.
So he's in constant fight or flight. So it's been interesting. You have to learn, like, I'm learning right now that the way that I was raised, even though I thought I had a great childhood, I'm looking back at certain things that, you know, I was taught, or the way that I was raised, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I can't raise him that way.
Right.
I have to learn how to raise a child. Like,
Mm.
mothering always came natural to me, but now I have to relearn something that I'm not familiar with. So that's where I'm at. And then I'm looking at my childhood and I was like, wow, there's generational curses there. And I'm learning, like, I'm going to break those curses. They're not going to go past me,
There you go.
So that's something that I am really, like, working hard on and trying to focus. And it takes a lot of focus and a lot of time and patience.
And if it didn't, it would have already been done.
Right.
You're the one to do
Mhm.
it. When you
Yeah.
look at the legacy that you leave, you were the one that disrupted that whole thing.
Yeah.
It
And
takes work.
it's funny when you're that person that's breaking the generational curse, the rest of the family kind of, like, you're going against the grain.
Yep.
So
Yep.
kind of become the problem in their eyes.
Yeah, you keep going, kind of like what Jackie said about what she did with her family, and I can pretty much um, guess that the reason that Jackie was able to do it, and it wasn't easy for her either, was because
Right.
she began to communicate. It's when you communicate, the boundaries, communicate and start that. It's going to start out rough, but eventually, when you stand your ground
Yeah.
on what you deserve, and then eventually they'll begin to respect and honor those boundaries.
Right.
Eventually, it takes time.
It does take time. They've always told me I'm the one they don't worry about out of my siblings. It was always me that they didn't have to worry about. I was the one with the level head, and I was the one, they didn't have to worry. And now that I'm kind of going against the grain and I'm going through these things, and it's like hey, worry about me for a minute. Come give me a hug. I need a hug too, you know? So it's funny watching the dynamics of everything that's shifting right now. But, you know, my mom told me, she goes, even though you're going against me, I'm proud of you for sticking up for yourself.
Very good.
You
Very
know,
good. Very good. Did you tell her you needed that hug?
I will.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a boundary. That's self-love. That's knowing what you need. Got
Right.
to communicate it.
Yeah,
Yep.
for
So,
sure.
talking about communication, like, could you share, Pam, maybe some practical strategies for communicating boundaries effectively?
Sure. You know, Jackie, one of the things that you did was you had these conversations. What's important to let people know is that I would like to have a conversation. And this is the conversation. My goal, and then you talk about what your goal is, and your goal, whatever situation, is always going to be a win-win. You don't say it's a win-win, but in the way that you communicate that, I'd like to have a conversation with you, and my goal in this conversation is to do this. And then ask for permission. Do you have time for that? And if they say, "Well, I don't have time right now," all right. Well, when would us have be a good time for us to have this conversation? The one thing you do not want to do is you do not want to have a conversation when you're all in your emotions. If you know that you have to have a conversation, then there's a particular um, journaling style that really helps you to have that conversation. And it's called script journaling, which is a form of the dialogical style of journaling. Whenever you know you have to have a courageous or crucial conversation with someone because you need to communicate something to create a win-win, an understanding, then you probably want to script it out first. And here's the reason for that. Because when we want to have a conversation with someone, we want to make sure that our emotions are not going to get in the way. When you do scripting, you have like a script. If you ever seen a script of a movie or a play, you have one column that has each person and what they're going to be talking about, right?
Hmm.
Well, when you know you're going to have a conversation, you can play it out in a script. And as you're saying something, you can assume or perceive how that person would respond to that. And if you feel they're going to respond that way, then you're able to come back and respond in a way that's logical, that's not emotional. So
Hmm.
you're basically practicing or scripting how you want that conversation to go. So just make sure, number one, that you are not taking it, having that conversation at a time when you're too emotional, right? Make sure you're having that conversation at a time when that person is open to that conversation, and make sure you identify what the goal is, not only for yourself, but for the person that you're having that conversation with. And here's another thing: if it starts to get where that person is starting to get defensive in the conversation because they're emotional, then first of all, if you've scripted it, you've already um,
Anticipate.
anticipated that that's what they're going to do and what your response is going to be. Now, if it gets to the point where it's all out of control, then that's when the boundary gets set. Then you say, you know what? It doesn't look like this is the time for us to have this conversation. And here's the other thing you do not want to ever do, and that is you never want to use the you word. You're not ready for this conversation. What do you mean I'm not? No, no, it's not you, because then they get defensive. It's one of those, you know what? Maybe this is not a good time for us to have this conversation. Let's come back, and would it be okay if we address this in the next 2 days? So you're doing that. Notice how level headed I'm speaking, because by the time you've scripted it, you got the emotions out of the way and it's all your head. Even when you do the dialogical journaling between the little girl and the adult and the child, you allow that child to get through the emotions, and you're letting that child know. Amy, this is one thing that we had talked about before you came on, that dialogical journaling between the inner adult and the inner child. Because you've had that conversation, that little girl now feels comfortable and safe that you're going to protect her when you go into a conversation. So, I hope those couple things helped you in knowing how to have a conversation. Again, if someone is presenting something to you where they're offending you, or they're trying to blame you, or they're trying to pull you into drama, I'm such a drama free zone. I don't do drama. So
Yeah.
whenever someone tries to do that, I say, I back off. I say, you know what? Maybe this isn't a good time for us to have a conversation. Even when I've been on the phone call, if someone is saying something that I have a sense, and my blood pressure will start to go up like a thermometer. It starts to go up, and I can tell you're going to get some drama, giving me some drama or some pushback. If I'm not ready for it, then I'm like, you know what? I think this conversation is going somewhere that I'm not ready to go. So either we can change the subject, or we can hang up and we can have this conversation at another time.
Right.
The one biggest thing about boundaries is you always want to give the other person a choice, either this or that.
Right.
Because when you give someone else a choice, then the ball is in their court. They have ownership of what the outcome is going to be based on the choice that they choose. So either they can change the subject, or we can end the call. Which one would you prefer? Now it's their choice.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, I want to continue the conversation. Well, then you've made the choice that we're going to end the call. That, that's it. Or, okay, because I've had this conversation with my mother many times where she'll say something, and I'll say, you know what? Either we can change the subject, or we can end the call. Oh, okay. When she wants to talk to me, she'll change the subject. So this is where you get someone to honor your boundaries, but you got to know what boundaries you're setting and why
Right.
you're setting them, and it has to be logical based on who you are and what you deserve. It doesn't have to be emotional at all. Boundaries are in love. They really are. And people get upset about setting boundaries. That's when they're not healthy. Your
Right.
boundaries are healthy when you use them in a logical, loving way, and you give an option and make sure it's a win-win for both of you.
Really good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Pam, like going through a lot of the stuff that you did and what that inspired you to write your book and do all this stuff, but there was a beginning to that. So, what do you think inspired you initially to specialize in this specific field out of everything else you could have done to help others maintain like healthy boundaries and learn that and all that stuff?
Good question. When I first started coaching back in 2007, I was coaching women, and I didn't have any really specific area. Just listening is helping women to set goals. So I think a few years ago, Jackie, you may remember. Yeah, I think you participated in this. I did a women's empowerment group that was called Something's Gotta Give. And with Something's Gotta Give, it was all about, where do you want to be in the next 5 years? What's preventing you from getting there? Oftentimes, what was preventing people from getting there was they hadn't set the right boundaries. And
Yeah.
those boundaries were the internal boundaries to identify, what is it that you really want? What is it about you that's stopping you from getting it? Because if you've been trying to do something 5 years later, you still haven't done it, there's something on you. It's not anybody else. You can't blame it on finances. You can't blame it on where you live. You can't blame it on the spouse, children, parents. You can't blame it on anything, because when you really want to do something, you'll find a way to do it. You'll figure out how to do it. And you have to set the boundaries within yourself, those internal boundaries I was telling you about, Jackie, so that you are not hindered from doing the things that you really want to do.
That's a great answer, Pam.
It's true. It's true. And another thing is, a lot of times people think boundaries are about restrictions. Boundaries are also about expansion. It's about
Mhm.
expanding yourself and the possibilities that you have, and knowing that you deserve them. And then you set boundaries around that, is by expanding it and identifying what it is or who it is that's preventing you from doing that expanding. And then you set the healthy boundaries around that, because you know what it is you want to do and what you need to do.
So what do you think is like some good advice or some advice that you could actually do for someone who like struggles to say no or assert their boundaries, like those healthy boundaries?
Well, you really have to get to look at who you are. What are some of the residual effects of your childhood traumas that are preventing you from saying no? One example, Jackie, you talked about being a people pleaser, right? I
Yeah.
I too was a people pleaser. The reason I was a people pleaser is because I never knew when my mom came home what her personality, what her attitude was going to be. So we would always be on pins and needles, wondering how to please her. And we got to the point where we were me. I was pleasing everybody because I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. And a lot of times people will please because they want to do those things. They want to be accepted. They want to be loved. For some reason, they felt that lack of that love growing up or even now. That's why it's so important to get back to looking at who you are and finding out self love. Because if you don't love yourself, you're going to always try to please everybody else. And then you're going to one that's going to end up being upset. So you got to find, that's why I said those internal boundaries are critical. Before you even set those external boundaries, you got to first set the internal ones where you're really understanding self-awareness, who you are, what's coming to the surface. Why is that coming to the surface? So you can heal, so you can be whole, so you can be healthy in any relationship that you choose to have, because not all relationships are healthy.
Mm-mm.
And no matter what you do, no matter how much you know or love yourself, oftentimes you have to learn how to, and it's a course that I have on my e-course site, and it's about how to detach. Sometimes there are people that we need to detach from. Now, detach comes in different forms. It's not always, exiting that person out of your life. It could be for a time being until you feel healthy and strong enough. But whenever I detach from someone in that manner, it's because I need to get to the place where I'm healthy and where I'm strong to be able to handle that person, because we can't change anybody else. But if we get to the point where we try to set boundaries and that person's not honoring our boundaries, it may be the time for us to put ourselves in a safe place until we have learned to heal and really understand ourselves and to grow and to become whole before we're able to have a relationship with them. Like I said, there's other ways to detach, but detachment also just means we've identified within ourselves what we can accept, what we don't accept, and what we can tolerate because we know who we are. There's certain people won't change. We got to identify whether we're gonna tolerate. Let me give you an example. My mother is for a while. I blamed my mother for my sister's suicide. So I wouldn't speak to her, but I got to a point where I did a lot of prayer and trauma work with a trauma coach, where I realized that I can't blame her for that. I can't blame her for that, but I can look within myself and see what kind of relationship I choose to have with her, and what boundaries that I set with her. And we now have a good relationship because of the boundaries that I'm able to set with her, because of the understanding that I have on who I am, and making it work for me healthy in a healthy manner.
I think that's great. I mean, I know of a couple people
Yeah.
It's deep
that,
stuff. Oh, it's deep.
yeah,
Isn't it?
The same
yeah,
person.
yeah.
Aw.
It's
So we
like
got
So,
to work
trauma
together on
bonding.
how to set boundaries with that individual.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
The
yeah,
whole thing
100%.
about boundaries is that you feel good about who you are, and you attempt to make it a win-win situation. But most importantly, you make sure that once you know who you are and what you deserve, that whoever that is, that they're honoring the boundaries that you set, because you set them in love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
So, we have a few minutes left. So I wanted to ask you one last question, and then I want you to share again, if you can, like where people can find you, like if your website, if they want to take your course, the next course that you may be having coming up, and then where they can buy your book and all that stuff. But my last question was, would you be able to share like a success story of a client or someone that's been in one of your groups who experienced significant growth through the boundary setting practices?
Yes, I do have a young lady who, wow, I think you introduced her to me. And she did not have, she went through a lot of childhood traumas. And after working with me, and not only in my Something's Gotta Give, but also in helping her understand how to have healthy relationships with men, she learned some things about herself, about her past, about her residual effects from her traumas. She had to learn how to heal from those childhood traumas, She had to learn how to have a healthy relationship with her mom. Now she's living with her mom and they have a really healthy relationship. So she will tell you that she's done the work, and now she's able to set healthy boundaries, not only in her business, but also in her relationships with men, as well as her relationship with her mother. And these are things that she had been running away from for quite a number of years, and not really understanding why things weren't working, but always hoping that they would. And it's not until you step back and really look at yourself and what are some of the residual effects that you are experiencing, exhibiting within your behaviors, and what you really have to do is just start looking at some patterns of results that you're getting. And why is that? Because it's, what they say, if you keep getting the same results, it's probably not somebody else, it's probably you.
It's probably you. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to have the courage to say, and the maturity to say, you know what, I really need to step back. I need to take some time and really get to know who I am, what things am I dealing with, and where do I need to heal, and so that I'm not continuing these patterns that are self-destructive, and they're not getting me anywhere, and they're causing collateral damage in every relationship and everything that I do. It could be in your job, your career, whatever it is you choose to do. And it's all going to come back to the work that you have not done in creating wholeness within yourself as a result of, you healing from past childhood traumas.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So any last thing you'd like to ask her, Amy, or comment or anything like that?
No, I'm interested in knowing more about you though.
Amy, you're a part of her boundaries group. I put you in that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
It's the face with the group with the name.
yeah. Yeah.
It's bold bound. I changed the name from Let's Talk Boundaries to Bold Boundaries from a Tender Heart.
Okay.
And the reason I did that was because I realized from the members that are really vocal is that they have been wounded and they're not sure how to set boundaries. But you have to, when you do set boundaries, they seem bold and they are coming from your place of vulnerability. But I want to teach you how to be bold in setting your boundaries, not negating that tender heart that's been wounded, that's loving, that people tend to walk all over or take advantage of. And it teaches you how to do it boldly so that you can continue to have that tender heart. People think because you have a tender heart, you don't set boundaries, then you take advantage of you. Au contraire, no. Then they don't know you.
Amy and I have known each other for 30 something years.
All
And
right.
since we were kids, yeah. And she's the middle. And it kind of was the one that was kind of like, as she says, forgotten about. I don't necessarily agree with that, but she's expressed that she's both. But it's
Middle
great.
child syndrome.
I'm a middle child.
But it's great to see her evolving and being out there more and being more vulnerable, and then really just stepping out and being more bold in what she does. So I'm just very proud of you, Amy.
Very
just denied a call from my mom just now.
How did you feel about that? How did you feel about that?
Well, I wanted to continue. I'll call her back, but I wanted to continue this conversation.
But that doesn't tell me how you felt about denying the call.
I'm having I would like to speak privately about that one, but I felt I really didn't have a whole big feeling about it. It was just like, I'll call you back.
Okay.
So, Pam, can you let people know where they can buy your book, show your book another time if you can hold it up to the camera and let people know where they can buy your book, where they can take some of your courses and get connected with you.
Okay, well, the first thing I'll do is I'll shut my... that is not my sister, but it just It's called I Had a Twin, Disrupting the Cycle of Childhood Traumas. And it can be found on Amazon. I Had a Twin. You can look there on Amazon. And the best way to get in touch with me, I do have the e-courses, but the best way is to go to the private Facebook group and join that group. What's important is that people have to answer the questions, at least to get to the point where you agree to the rules and where you put I agree, because I've got probably 20 people right now who have not agreed. So guess what? My boundary, they can't be a part of the group. I need you to agree to the rules. And so once you get in there, that's when you can connect with me via instant message, and I will give you the information to get to the e-courses. Whenever you give me your email, I then send you information about the e-courses. The e-courses through a platform. It's called Member Vault. So I usually give people that. I'll give you my email address. My email address is theboundariescoach@gmail.com. The boundaries, BOUNDARIES, coach@gmail.com. Then I get you on my subscriber list so that I can send you information to access the e-courses. The e-courses I have on there right now are absolutely free. And I haven't put the paid ones on, but and like you said, Jackie, I am working on doing a rites of passage, which is a 6-week journal writing course. And that I will be putting out information to my subscriber base and even on the private Facebook, Let's Talk Boundaries. And don't forget, I also have, as you know, Jackie, the private Facebook group for the Jouranling Suite, where I'll be putting that out there as well. So you've got 2 private Facebook groups. You've got Bold Boundaries from a Tender Heart, and you've got the Jouranling Suite to learn all about how to use different journaling styles to be healthy and whole in your life.
That's awesome. So just hang on, Pam. Don't hang up. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the You Are Loved podcast with myself and my beautiful sister, Amy, and our gorgeous guest, Pamela Byrd, with the bird's eye view. And we really appreciate you tuning in today. Please comment, like, and subscribe. You'll be able to find us on YouTube, and you'll be able to get access to our journal at youarelovedjournal.com. And that is an absolutely free journal that you can get. If you want the hard copy, then you can definitely upgrade to that. That is at a minimal cost. So thank you so much, everyone. We look forward to connecting with you again, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of You Are Loved. If you have any topic ideas or would like to be a guest on the show, please hit us up on Instagram at youareloved.store.